We've covered quite a few things by this point, and I think the key insight from the last video was this idea of focusing in on a specific column. We were able to focus in on a specific column by only using the name uh, of the column and applying that somehow to the overall table. For example, if we want to focus in on the student ID column, the syntax or the way for Python to focus in on that column is to first to declare the table students and then have open square parentheses, write the name of the column that you want to focus in on, and make sure that this is a string, which basically means we are, wrapping it around by quotes, and then we close off the parentheses. So we're going to continue with this notion of focusing in on the columns and do more sophisticated things to the tables that we create to the data frame. In this example, we're given a table, right? The table has two columns, names and salaries. And we want to create a new column with called bonus, which is basically 2 times the value that's in salary. So in this case, Georgia has a salary of around 1100, and the bonus would be twice that, which is 2200. So, I mean, you might think, this is only, 6 rows. We can manually calculate the bonuses by just doubling everything in our calculator very quickly, and then create a table from that. But what if we wanted to do more sophisticated calculations on some column and then use that output and output it in a new column, right? And what if instead of 6 rows, we have 1,000,000 rows? Well, with Python and Pandas, there's a very simple way to uh, do this sort of uh, create this sort of solution, which you can sort of extrapolate to larger data sets. So instead of, we're not going to use the exact values in the tables. We're going to continue with our students data set. So if I view the students data set again, I have student IDs, names, and age. What I'm going to do is my task instead is going to be so I'll write my task. Create a new column called age in dog years, which is 7.5 times the human age. Okay, so in this case, the human age is represented by this column called age, and we want to create a new column called age in dog years, which is 7.5 each of these, right? So what we're basically trying to do is, 10 in this case, the age in dog years would be 75, right? If we multiply it by 7.5. So how do we do this sort of in an automated way with Python? Since students is already a data frame, we saw in the previous video how we can easily focus in on a column and its values. In this case, we're interested in the age column because we sort of want to multiply each of its entries by 7.5. So we're going to focus in on the age column. The next thing that we're going to do is just like we create variables, for example, if I scroll up, we created the students variable, we created the columns variable, we created this whole student data variable, right? Just how we create variables. We've been creating variables. We're going to create a new variable called, which is basically another column called age in dog years. Now you might wonder, how can we use this sort of syntax right now, because this column doesn't even exist. you know I mean, we're in this case we're focusing on the age column, so we're able to get some answers. If I run this, I shouldn't get anything because the column doesn't even exist at this point, right? It's saying key error age in dog years. It doesn't recognize that this is even a column name in our students table. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it equal to something. We're going to give it a value. And this is one of the points where Python comes in very handy, because it's, uh, a high level language, and it's more intuitive to understand. What we're really thinking of doing is taking every entry in the age column and multiplying it by 7.5. And, we don't really have to handle the case where we're, iterating through each of the rows and multiplying that by 7.5. This syntax takes care of all of that. So I'm going to run this cell now, and I don't get any errors, which is good. If I check what the students table is now, we have this new column called age in dog years, which is, previously we mentioned 10 would correspond to 75. The reason there's a zero and, it's a float, basically, because there's a decimal, it's not an integer, is because of this 0.5. When you multiply anything with a float, it turns into a float. And that's something to keep in mind if you want to do some additional analysis and you're wondering why there's, extra decimal points when, the original data didn't have that.